signing the papers to remove her life support before doctors confirmed anything. And now the nurse asking why he kept pushing the timeline so hard. What was he trying to prevent?
The last thing I remember before everything went dark was laughing at my husband in our kitchen at 6 in the morning. Mark was trying to pack our daughter Lily's school lunch while pretending he knew how to braid her hair, and she kept swatting his hands away, giggling so hard she almost spilled orange juice across the counter. I stood there watching them, thinking how lucky I was that after 10 years together, our home still felt warm like that. At the time, I was 30 years old, running my own physical therapy clinic, planning an anniversary trip with my husband, and worrying about completely normal things: overdue paperwork, grocery lists, whether Lily would pass her spelling test. And Mark? He looked at me like I was the center of his world. Which is why one small thing he said that morning didn't make sense. Right before I grabbed my keys, he smiled and said quietly, "Promise me, if anything ever happens to you, you'll trust me to make the right decision." I remember laughing because it sounded so dramatic coming from him. Mark always had this habit of saying strange things with a completely serious face just to watch me react. I tossed my purse over my shoulder and told him he'd been watching too many medical dramas again. But he didn't laugh back right away. For maybe 2 seconds, he just stood there leaning against the counter, coffee mug in his hand, staring at me with this unreadable expression I couldn't quite place. Then Lily started complaining that her dad tied her braid like a fishing knot, and the moment disappeared. By 8:30, I was at my clinic across town, moving through appointments like any other Thursday. Mrs. Delgado was recovering from knee surgery. One of my teenage athletes kept trying to convince me he was ready to play before his shoulder healed. My assistant Jenna kept teasing me about the anniversary trip Mark and I had planned for the mountains the following month. Everything felt ordinary, predictable, safe. Around noon, Mark stopped by unexpectedly carrying takeout from my favorite cafe. He kissed my forehead in front of everyone and told me I was working too hard again. "Somebody has to keep this family running," I joked. He smiled, but there was tension behind it this time. His eyes drifted toward the paperwork sitting open on my desk: insurance documents, loan agreements for the clinic expansion, beneficiary forms I still hadn't finalized. "You should really finish those," he said casually. "You never know what can happen tomorrow." I remember rolling my eyes at him again. Later that afternoon, we visited my father at St. Vincent's Hospital after his physical therapy session. That was where I first met Nurse Dana Morales. She only spoke to us for maybe a minute in the hallway, but I noticed something strange immediately. Every time she asked me a question, Mark answered first. When she asked if heart conditions ran in my family, he interrupted before I could speak. When she asked whether I was sleeping enough, he answered that too. Dana gave me a quick look I didn't understand at the time. Not rude, just observant. That night, rain hammered the windshield while I drove home from work. Lily was staying at my sister's house, and Mark kept calling, asking where I was. "You need to hurry," he said during the last call. Something about his voice had changed. Not worried, impatient. And just before I reached the intersection near our neighborhood, my brake pedal slammed straight to the floor. That was the moment everything inside me changed. I stopped hearing Mark as my husband, and started hearing him as someone waiting for me to die. The next morning, I heard papers sliding across a table beside my bed. A doctor spoke quietly. "Mr. Carter, if you're certain, these are the authorization forms." My heart pounded so hard I thought the machines would expose me. Then came the sound of a pen clicking open. "I understand," Mark said calmly. No tears, no hesitation. After the doctors left, the room stayed silent for several seconds before Nurse Dana stepped closer to my bed. Then she whispered, "Elena, I know you can hear me." Terror shot through me. "She's showing neurological response," Dana said softly. "And your husband's been asking financial administration questions since the night of the crash." My mind raced. Then Dana said the words that made everything worse. The police are investigating your brakes.
He signed the papers while she was still having break activities, and now the next says breaks were tampering. What is he hiding?
Footsteps approached the room. Mark was coming back, and before the door opened, Dana whispered one last thing. Don't react. He can't know you're awake. That night felt endless. I lay trapped inside my own body, replaying every strange moment from the past year. The secret phone calls, the sudden debt notices Mark claimed were bank mistakes, the way he pushed me to increase my insurance coverage after expanding the clinic. I had trusted every explanation. Now I couldn't stop wondering which parts of my marriage had been real. Around dawn, Nurse Dana returned alone. I felt her fingers press lightly against my hand. Elena, she whispered, if you can hear me, try to move one finger. I pushed with everything I had. Nothing. Then finally, the smallest twitch. Dana inhaled sharply. Good. Keep fighting. Hours later, I heard raised voices outside my room. Investigators were questioning Mark about the accident. A mechanic had found deliberate brake line damage. Mark's calm mask started cracking after that. He snapped at nurses, demanded immediate withdrawal forms, refused to let anyone except hospital staff near me. Then, just before sunrise, he leaned close beside my bed and whispered, "You should have trusted me less." And suddenly, my hand clenched the bedsheet. Machines exploded into alarms. Everything after that happened fast. Doctors rushed into the room while alarms screamed around me. Someone grabbed my wrist. Another voice shouted for neurological response testing. And through all the chaos, I heard Mark stumble backward beside my bed. "Elena?" he said sharply. Not emotional, panicked. For the first time since the accident, I forced my eyes open just enough to see him standing there, frozen in shock, while Nurse Dana told the doctors to stop the withdrawal procedure immediately. Within 2 days, police confirmed my brakes had been intentionally damaged. Mark had hidden massive investment debts for over a year. My life insurance payout would have covered everything. Investigators later discovered he'd pressured me to drive home during the storm because he knew exactly what would happen once the brakes failed. The worst part wasn't waking up in a hospital bed. It was learning my husband had already signed the papers to end my life before I could wake up and expose him. A week later, I watched police arrest him through my hospital window while Lily held my hand beside the bed. And the person who saved my life wasn't my husband. It was the nurse who realized he wanted me gone too quickly.
If one less hadn't questioned those teenagers and timing decisions, nobody would have looked into the crash at all. So how many cases like these are never questioned in time?